I'd like to introduce Michael Torrens. Michael is the Executive Director of Analysis, Assessment, and Accreditation at Utah State University, and he also serves as the institutional research consultant for the Passport. And so, Michael, I will let you take it away.
Thank you very much. They asked me to talk about a few different things today. First of all, I wanted to mention the registrar IR checklist as what I think is a helpful starting point for understanding data reporting. The one that I'm looking at is titled, the file is titled Awarding and Tracking Student Implementation Checklist. And the nice thing about this particular file is it provides kind of a checklist of when you expect to get these pieces complete, but there are live links on that. So for example, when we're talking about the initial data file that we submit for passport completions that is submitted to the National Student Clearinghouse, there's a link that goes to the formatting and submission guide, right? And when there is when it's talking about your ability to go to the National Clearinghouse and request a verify file, a passport verify file, which tells you which students, for example, when you're accepting students that have come in with a passport, you have the ability to verify that passport status with the National Student Clearinghouse. And so that line includes a direct link to the passport verify formatting and submission guide. So I just think that particular file is an important one, and it's nice because it's actually got the help files built in when you click on them. So I will say up front that I think data reporting has been one of the challenges for the Passport project. And it's really about how quickly we can get up to speed with doing the reporting. And I wanted to talk, next slide, kind of about the critical role that's played. What you can see here is that in terms of the official reporting for passports, it has been relatively consistent year on year from 2016-17 all the way through the most recent year in 2019-20. You can see that COVID really impacted our reporting, to a certain extent our awarding, but I also think to a great extent our reporting of passports completed. And going back to making the passport effective, one of the great things for us at Utah State is the fact that we can submit these verify files to the National Student Clearinghouse the same way we would with a degree verify file, right? And what comes back is all the information about students who've been awarded passports. But unfortunately, we can only get information for passports that have actually been reported to the National Student Clearinghouse. So to the extent that we're not reporting completion files, that system breaks down, and we don't have the ability to request that data from the clearinghouse. So I guess, first of all, I'd kind of like to say, let's go ahead and go to the next slide, explain. So for the completion files, we report students who've been awarded passports, and then that gives us the ability to request information about students who've gotten those passport awards. That I would put as the absolute most important primary data product to focus on. But then there's this second product, which is academic progress tracking, which I think maybe is a little bit less clear sometimes for new members to understand. So this is where we're reporting back the results for students who've transferred in with a passport. And we're also reporting back results for transfer students who were awarded a passport at our institution. So native students who were awarded a passport at our institution and didn't transfer. And that provides important information for the Passport Review Board, for example, to make sure that the passport's working successfully. And the academic progress tracking, although we submit it once a year, is actually tracking cohorts. So students who transfer in just before the summer term, students who transfer in just before the fall term, and students who transfer in just before the spring term. And then it tracks at least 2 semesters of enrollment after those transfers in, and provides course level grade information for those passport transfer students and for those native students. And the reason that's important is it gives us comparative data. Let's go to the next slide. we're reporting academic progress data, and we're also reporting anonymized data about race, ethnicity, gender, first generation, low income, using Pell as a proxy, veterans, the GPA students had before transfer, the credits they earned before transfer, and then the degree level that the students are pursuing, associates and bachelors. And what that provides then, next slide, is automatic institution-specific reports. So on those dimensions, you're going to have reports that you can pull down from the National Student Clearinghouse that give you the progress of your students after they transferred. So let's imagine a student enrolls at your institution, you award them a passport. So for example, they're here at USU, we award them a passport, and then they transfer to another USHE institution, like let's say the University of Utah. When the University of Utah reports that academic progress, we can see how the student did in terms of the grades that they received, their GPA, the number of credits they were taking. And let's go to the next slide. We also have the ability to pull down raw data. So in addition to those institution-specific reports, for example, Utah State University, I've requested from the National Student Clearinghouse a raw data for our students because I wanted to do an analysis of first generation and low income and see how those students did post-transfer out of USU. Now, usually that's information that I wouldn't have. Right now, historically, I could pull from the National Student Clearinghouse information about subsequent enrollment and graduation from other institutions. Let's go to the next slide and maybe that'll help explain. But here's an example of analysis that I did on that raw data file that I received from the National Student Clearinghouse. I looked at female and male students, and I used dimensions of low income and not low income. And then the bars, you see there's a thick bar if it was a first generation student and a thin bar if it was not a first generation student. And what's interesting here is that female low income students subsequent to transfer actually did pretty much as well, if not better, than not low income female students. But when you move to look at the male students who are low income, and particularly low income first generation students, there actually is a pretty big impact post-transfer in terms of the average grades that they received. And so we've kind of internalized this analysis to say, are there things that we need to be doing in terms of preparation of our students so that they can be successful? I mean, much of this analysis is in line with what we've seen in other analysis in our native students, but it's interesting to be able to have that for students after they've already transferred. And the academic progress, let's go to the next slide. The academic progress tracking also enables the Passport Review Board to be able to compare results for passport transfer students, non-passport transfer students, and students who are awarded a passport but remain at that institution. And this is where I think what I've called sort of the trust but verify process kicks in, because all of us are taking a little bit of a leap of faith in participating in the passport, which is when we agree to accept transfer students in who and say that they've completed their general education, what we're doing is we're trusting all of the other passport institutions in terms of the preparation that those institutions have provided in their general education programs. So what it means is, you know, we accept transfer students from Salt Lake Community College, for example, from Ladon's institution. And our expectation is that the general education that was provided to them is sufficient, more than sufficient for those students to be successful at Utah State. That's the trust that we've put in. And this that's provided to the Passport Verify, through the academic progress tracking to the Passport Review Board is the Verify. What we see with the red bar is that the GPA for students who come in with a transfer for the passport transfer, for example, from Salt Lake Community College, is actually as high or even higher than the students that were native that earned a passport here at Utah State. And those students are doing much better than students who didn't come in with that passport, which we'd expect because a non-passport transfer hasn't completed that general education. They may be coming in with less credits. They may be coming in under different circumstances. But when you're reviewing these bar graphs, what we're really seeing is that outcomes by gender, by first generation status, by income, right, are as good or better for our passport transfer students as they are for the native students who are earning passports here at our institutions. Let's go to the next slide. We also see that the credit intensity of our students coming in with passports is just as high as the credit intensity for our native students. So these are students who are taking, on average, it's a full load. And that really suggests that we're getting to graduation with these students at the velocity that we'd expect, that we'd like to be able to see. So that's what we get by doing the academic progress tracking. So I would say that the passport completion file is fundamental to even enabling us to be able to make the passport system work properly, right? We can't verify if we don't know a student's been awarded the passport, but the academic progress tracking is what gives us the confidence to know that the system is working the way that we expect, and that our trust in all the other participating institutions in the passport project is being returned in terms of the preparation of the students that are coming in as transfer students. Let's go to the next slide. And I just want you to know that we provide annually to the Passport Review Board, which is a membership board, the results for all of these different dimensions, right? Low income, race, gender, to be able to ensure that we're not leaving anybody behind, that those outcomes that we're seeing, we're not just taking the generalized outcomes for all transfer students transferring in with passports, but we're actually looking to make sure that those results are replicated, whether we're looking by gender, whether we're looking by race, ethnicity, whether we're looking by low income, whether we're looking by first generation, that this is the kind of information that the Passport Review Board has to be able to ensure that we're doing the work that we need to be doing. Next slide. And that's it.